Oh man, it worked. It worked. There are people here and we're live and I don't even know what to do with myself anymore. Hi, I'm Sincerely V. Welcome to Meeple Monday. It's been a minute out of Meeple Monday. And I got a great crew of people here. Welcome to Gamers for Peace. Let me start off. Gamers for Peace. No. Hopefully you know who we are by now, but if not, we're a community of vets, allies, accomplices, friends, family, people that are pushing back on military recruitment and gaming spaces, online hobby spaces. Tonight is Meeple Mondays, where we get together, play some board games, some role-playing games, and I have an awesome crew with me, and let them introduce themselves. But I'm Sincerely B, also known as Chris, a veteran for peace, gamer for peace. I'm on staff with Veteran for Peace as a digital organizer, and I served in the Marine Corps a few years, a couple decades ago, and I read it, and share that experience here. So I'm gonna toss it over to Paladin Dad. Start us off with introductions.
Right on. Paladin Dad, also Rep, also Garrett, and Metagame Gate, I think on the Twitch, and I am a Gamers for Peace. I'm executive director of Veterans for Peace, and I'm a 4th level Meeple. Power to the Meeple. Go to
power to.
Go to camera.
Before you jump over, Paladin Dad, here I'm gonna flip over your ancestor and your value, so you can write that down. Start thinking about your character. All right, so your ancestor is you are a grower. And that is a gardener, a farmer, or a
That's awesome.
Next, your value is communality. Communality, a feeling of cooperation and belonging arising from common interests and goals.
Super.
All right. All right, now we'll go over to Cameron. All right, Cameron, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name's Cameron. I'm 28 years old, live in South Philly. We're here with my dog and my cat, who are both out of frame, you know, classic meme there. And then, I don't really have too much else to add here. I don't know. I'm organizing for environmental justice in Philadelphia and around the area, internationally too. Happy to be here with everyone. I will toss it over to Momo.
Before we do that,
I gotta do the ancestry value first.
Here you go. Cameron, you are an elder, a sage, a mentor, or an advisor.
All right.
Right? And your value is cooperation. Cooperation. It has the spelling of the card, or the phonetic of it. Working together, the sharing of space or resources towards a common purpose. And now, let's take it over. You said Monisha? Let's take it over to Monisha.
Hello, I am Monisha, but y'all can call me Momo. I'm talking to you from Puerto Rico. And I do a lot of different things. I am right now working on founding an organization called Centro, Solidario, which is like a mutual aid, multifaceted community project out here to facilitate decolonization and independence for Puerto Rico. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Glad to have you here, Momo. Ready? Here's your ancestor. You are a hacker, programmer, a whistleblower, a cryptographer, cryptographer. I can't say or read this. I'm special tonight. And your value is self-determination. All right, the freedom to make decisions and act in the absence of external control. All right, and that leaves us with Krios. Krios, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. This is Krios. I am an ally with the Gamers for Peace and the Veterans for Peace. It's been a bit since I've been on stream, since season 1 of the Mental Health Mondays. I think it was the last time I was here with everyone. So you, I think, are all new faces to me. So hi, welcome to meet you all, or glad to meet you all. And hello to everybody out in Streamland. I'm excited to play SolarPunk Futures with you guys tonight, and let's solve some crisis.
like that energy. And we have for your ancestor. Your ancestor was an engineer, a technician, a machinist, an operator. And their value was biomimicry. Biomimicry. The use of living structures and systems to inspire art, craft, design, and engineering. For myself, I did not pull my own card, so I'll pull mine now. I am playing my ancestor healer with the value of usufruct. Usufruct. The free use and enjoyment of resources, so long as they are not destroyed in the process. A new concept for me.
I love it.
Right? That's
I can't wait for you to expand on this concept. It's one of the best in the world. Say Momo, mutual aid knows usufruct is key.
We do a quick recap of who everybody is again, so we can think about like synergy and cooperation and such.
We have Momo. Backwards. Okay. Paladin Dad, you are a grower with the communality value. And I'm going to try to arrange. Momo, hacker with self-determination is your value. Cameron, you are an elder with cooperation. I am a healer with usufruct as my value. And Krios is an engineer with biomimicry, their value. All those plants and animals that do things that nature. All right. That. Okay. So, I'm going to give a little reading prompt now that you have your characters and give you a couple more minutes to think about the thing that a little bit about your character. You've been chosen as members of this year's Assembly for the Future. Your sacred task is to lead the opening of the Festival of Remembrance, where you collectively remember how each of your ancestors came together to overcome the challenges of the world before. The Assembly must project your mind backwards into one of the many pivotal moments in our legacy of freedom to secure the utopia we've won. I know, Anarchiclad, if I can't pronounce, I absolutely did lose. So with that said, we are remembering how we overcame problem. Let's introduce ancestors. Starting with Momo, I'm going to tell your ancestor's name, maybe a little bit about them. Our ancestors are the reason we are here. The festival is designed to honor and reinscribe their Momo.
My ancestor doesn't have a name because they couldn't have a name. But my ancestor was present everywhere and was really kicking the, can I cuss?
Yes.
Kicking the asses of crypto colonizers in Puerto Rico to ensure that we could have our self-determination. I love this ancestor so much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, next. Paladin Dad, tell us about your ancestor, the grower.
My ancestor was named Sugar. sugar was one of the most adept growers of sugar and a stiller of rum, and was known to keep the community together through vibrant energy, good stories, and powerful humor. And if you weren't coming to sugar for the rum, you're coming there for family.
I like sugar. Sugar seems cool. All right, Cameron, what about your ancestor? You remembering today?
Ooh. My ancestor's name is Rigia. She was the village elder at the delta of one of the largest river systems on the island. Was in charge of being a loaded term, but mainly help cooperate the island to make sure that this river delta maintained the wetlands that were originally there. Because during her lifetime, people were steadily polluting these wetlands and harming the drinking water that her and her children and ancestors took in on a daily basis. So her job was to make sure that all of the people in the community work together to restore those wetlands to its original beauty. And yeah.
Awesome.
Rigia.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Rios, I'm going to skip me and go to you. I'm putting you on the spot. Tell me about your ancestor.
All right, thanks. No, so my ancestor was Blake Stanley. They were an engineer in the biomimicry department. Their goal in Puerto Rico was to actually try to build up instead of out, and try to find ways to synthesize the soil and the sunlight and the whole climate of Puerto Rico in these greenhouses, these vertical greenhouses, so that instead of taking over land, they can just go straight up and still grow the natural plants and foods of the island without destroying the climate there in the process.
Beautiful. Beautiful. My ancestor is Maria. Maria was raised knowing the land, use it, providing for the health of the community, and natural medicines that the abundant, fertile soil and provided. Had a philosophy of making sure that you freely use anything that was available, so long as it was restored, continued to be available. Maria. Now that we've met our ancestors, our festival focuses on one challenge of the world before we came and solved this problem, before we achieved the utopia that we have today. None of the challenges were easy to overcome. This one in particular. It's time that one. Just to change it up. The digital divide. Digital divide. The disparities in essential information, resources, and freedom of expression due to limited internet. And from here, we're going to take a turn, go around, and everyone gets to take a turn and describe the challenge, why it was so daunting for your ancestor, and how it countered your ancestor's personal value. You can begin your remembrance of ancestors' involvement with this challenge. When we overcame the challenge of the digital divide, I remember, and then give a little bit of detail how that challenge interacted. Thank you, Anarcho. Adjust. And we're going to start off with Momo. Go ahead.
I remember how the digital divide really challenged my ancestor in their effort to thwart the crypto colonizers who were using all the internet access and all the electricity that was available to everyone in Puerto Rico, but was rare for people in Puerto Rico because of the privatization of the electrical grid and the instability from climate change and the way that the corrupt so-called leaders of Puerto Rico would make sure that the majority of Puerto Ricans, especially the poor Puerto Ricans, could not have electricity and therefore could not access the internet and could not be informed. And the way that my ancestor was trying to work around this was through underground action, through non-digital means of educating and informing people of what crypto colonialism was and how the private industries that were dominating the electrical grid were actually killing our people. What else am I supposed to say?
That's great.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. We'll take it over to Sugar.
I remember hearing stories of from Sugar when the grid went down and all the supply lines and logistical systems dropped all of a sudden, and people with the ability created digital islands where they were able to trade information and get logistical systems back up. But many places in the isolated parts of the world were left without. And Sugar once again took to the seas to trade rum for supplies, for goods, to help his community. And with that, obviously, came piracy once again. And through ingenuity and cleverness, Sugar was able to reconnect some of these isolated areas back to the goods that they needed.
Thank you. Cameron. Write your ancestor's name up.
Whoa.
I know,
How
I'm
could you
horrible.
forget about dear old Rigia. Say, I remember stories from Rigia about the digital divide. Say, when she was growing up, the internet was just starting to become more popular. So really most people in her community were not aware of it until years after most people in the big cities were. Unfortunately, because of all the floods that hit the river delta system here, people did not install internet access to this community for quite some time after most people had access to the internet. And what she wanted to do was make sure that her people in the river delta got more connected with the rest of the world, and through rewilding the wetlands there by planting more mangrove trees, they were able to connect their community to the internet and break that digital divide while improving the wetland and the ecosystem around the area, because she was convinced that with cooperation from the community, everyone working together, we could do both. And she was right, thankfully.
Thank you, Reggio. Rios. Skipping me and putting you on the spot again. Go ahead. You're up.
I noticed a trend. So.
Yeah, it's gonna keep happening.
So Blake and these biotech greenhouses were controlled by internet, by Bluetooth, by electricity, which as Momo's ancestor had pointed out, or as Momo pointed out by her ancestor, English words, was privatized to an extent of it was very hard to get a hold of and rare. And the bio company that he worked for was almost kind of had treated by capitalists like they were gangsters, requiring priority fees to provide him and the company with the electricity and the internet they needed in order to sustain these greenhouses appropriately. They were, being a biomimicry engineer, they were able to work with solar power. However, they still didn't get the internet usage they needed to completely maintain it all the time, until the tools that we were getting to be told about after Syngos became available.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Blake. Maria remembers when we overcame the challenge of the digital, recognizing that the lack of information and education that had been passed down through generational knowledge, efforts of the colonizers, and through this, the absence of internet education system of the island, was creating a hole by which people could heal themselves, to take care and address of the conditions and symptoms that the pollution, the military, the U.S. military, and colonizers' efforts there, crypto fascists, the crypto colonizers, to take care of things, and people need it. Feel spiritually, physically, mentally. So, a lot of work cut out in figuring out how to spread that education, do the healing, it in a way that didn't further destroy or limit the resources or access for anybody. And that is our challenge, digital divide. We're on to building this new world, the world that we have successfully achieved, utopia. Success wasn't immediate. Utopia required struggle and adaptability. Every ancestor began somewhere. Each of us are going to draw 2 tool cards. We're going to take 5 minutes to write down how your ancestor kind of used those tools to achieve working together to solve aspects of the problem that relate to your value and your type. So I'm going to flip over these tools, and then you get a couple minutes. And I'll give you some prompts. We'll start a 5-minute timer after we go through this, and smooth lo-fi beats on for everybody to entertain themselves with while we think about this, and we'll come together and go into our next phase, the remembrance, where we actually work together to solve the problem. All right, so starting with Momo. Momo, our hacker with self-determination, has the tools of clothing design, the material itself being living while it's on you, diagnosing and treating, nourishing, becoming part of your well-being. That is a quote from Suzanne Lee. And your second tool is photography. The camera is an instrument that teaches people how to see without a camera. Paladin Dad, sugars. Our resident growers' tools were memes. We steal, repurpose, re-examine, and ultimately redefine everything from celebrities to politicians, corporate logos, and redistribute these skewed ideas to the public for free. A quote by David Constable. And your second tool is mass protest. We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. That's Eli Wiesel. Wiesel? Quote from 1986. Cameron, you have the tools of equipment library. We can imagine a future in which most of life's material needs are provided in this way, from suitcases to lawnmowers to speedboats. And visionary fiction. We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. So did the divine right of kings. Resistance and change often begin in art, and very often in our art, the art of words. That is Ursula K. Le Guin quote. Rios. Yours are guerrilla gardening, move quietly and plant things. Andrew Dana Hudson. And secondly, reparations. The wealth of the imperial countries is our wealth too. It's a just reparation which will be paid to us. Franz Fanon, 19. Then, my two tools. Flora, fauna identification. We don't have to figure out everything by ourselves. There are intelligences other than our own, teachers all around us. Robin Wall Kimmerer. And then public transport. Forget the damned motor car and build cities for lovers and friends. Lewis Mumford, 1979. And those are the tools our ancestors had. We came together and solved the problem of the digital divide. That's an interesting fact, metagame. All right. We'll take a couple minutes. We'll throw some music on. Let's see. So right now, we're going to write how each ancestor initially approached the challenge using the tools they brought with them or created along the way. Since they won't fully overcome the challenge until the next phase, be sure to think about where they came up short and or which powers stood in their way. Here's some questions to help guide you. How did your ancestor first address the challenge using their tools guided by their value? Which aspect of the challenge did your ancestors focus on? Was there a moment that when they understood the challenge in a whole new way? What risks did your ancestor have to take? Did they need to make sacrifices? Who were their allies? Which powers opposed their efforts? In what ways did your ancestors succeed? In what ways did they come up short? So I'm going to start a timer, put some music on for everybody, and then when that timer ends, we're going to come together for the remembrance and start. Or when the timer ends, we're going to share our individual stories of using those tools and our values. And then we're going to do the remembrance, which is how we collectively use and complement each other in order to work together to overcome the entire problem. We'll get into next. Get going. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Double check if you need to know your card or anything. Gotcha. Alrighty, alrighty, alrighty. Back. The Momo got some snackage there. That up, Papaya? I'm lost.
Papaya.
Papaya, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, that thing. It begins with a P. Mm-hmm. And did you get that from Ancestor Maria taking you out back into the backyard and pulling it directly from a tree?
Sadly, no. This I ended up having to get from a market, but yeah.
Bear.
Full good papaya.
Mm-hmm. Good looking papaya. All right. Well, Momo, let's start with you. Everybody's ready.
Yes.
All right. So, how did our nameless hacker succeed?
They who hack used clothing design to infiltrate the crypto colonizers' spaces, and they used photography to collect evidence and other pertinent information to use to inform others in the movement for self-determination. And they focus entirely on information gathering on who was hoarding digital access and who was hoarding the power grid, basically, who was hoarding all of the energy in order to facilitate crypto colonialism. And this helped them understand the challenge of the digital divide in a new way, because of how the digital divide was limiting access to a potentially liberating currency. And then they also saw how this type of currency was being used as a weapon rather than as a pathway toward liberation for people. By infiltrating these spaces, even though they had some pretty fantastic disguises, they risked their anonymity and exposure as a hacker. So they risked being named, but they did have some allies inside the crypto colonizer community who, like many veterans, like a lot of us have experienced, recognized what they were a part of and no longer wanted to be a part of it. And so they turned into informants. And my amazing ancestors succeeded in doing this because they were so determined to succeed. And no matter what risks they took, they were ready to fight and even die to get the information to the people who needed it. But they actually did fall short sometimes because they missed opportunities, because they didn't recognize ways that they could potentially turn other crypto colonizers to the light side. Thank you.
That's excellent, excellent. Paladin Dad. Let's hear about sugar.
All right. I wrote this down, so I might screw it up. So we'll see. What started as sharing gardening tips and plant picks, Sugar learned that the egos and reputations of the crypto fascist leaders were just as fragile as the hierarchical systems they built. A clever meme takedown was more effective than a brick through a window. Inside each witty image was encoded organizing messages that helped mobilize thousands against spontaneous targets. What once were ignorable puns and recycled graphics became tools for liberation, and the resistance had the last laugh.
Wonderful. Cameron.
Well, Bridgia in the great floods of the 1990s, every time that her area flooded, she had to work with the community to get a sump pump, a dehumidifier. She had to make sure she had ways to be able to take care of the family who was now all of their belongings soaked with water year after year. So at this point, she started talking to the community that she would trade some pieces of machinery with and say, wouldn't it be cool, if none of us had to do this and organize this every time? What if we had Like a library, we go, we get books, we go, we bring it back. What if we had that for equipment? We went in there and no one would have to come use your sun pump. We would have to, there would be 6 in there at all times. People could use them. Dehumidifiers. What if we had a library of 30 different ones that we could choose from at differing pressures? And then actually, that grew to, after fixing the damage the floods created, how do we rebuild from the floods? Well, why don't we just have the library for hammers, for drills, for wood? She created a couple enemies along the way. Obviously, the community loved that idea, but the owner of the local hardware store was not happy about what she was doing to create a library where no one would have to pay for their goods and services. How do they make a living? Well, Regia told her to come to the library. And really, there were some successes to this, because this library idea, this idea of usufruct, they learned from their friend Maria, could be used in many situations, not just an equipment library, whether it's a food library, where it's something where, well, I guess with food, you wouldn't really bring it back quite. But that turned into another visionary fiction, which maybe you could. What if we just, from our food waste, we created more compost and we started growing our own food? Maybe that would be a food library. You come to the forest and you pick a papaya and you go home and you eat the papaya tonight. All in all, really, this was a huge success. She took risks. She made enemies along the way, but the enemies were businesses, and she never liked the businesses anyway.
Excellent. Regia is amazing. Krios, go ahead, my friend.
All right. So one of Blake's passions was always gardening and providing food and all that, which was why they took up this career and this goal to create these these sustaining greenhouses, which is kind of ironic to say. Anyway, but because there was such this big gap in availability of electric and digital tech and internet to everyone, he used that power for good and was planting endangered plants along routes where they were trying to remove or relocate some of the cables. The capitalists were trying to really control that flow of information, but by taking this movement of planting these endangered plants, they were no longer able to get into those areas or dig up those areas. Sorry, I'm trying to reread some of the questions. I typed some stuff out, but then I accidentally deleted it all at the end when I went to delete one sentence because I hit Control A. They did end up coming up short because there is only, the powers that be with the capitalists always seem to have their ways around. They lobbied to relocate or shut off some of those cables that had already been previously run instead of repairing them, or they couldn't repair the ones that had been grown over anyway. But as far as the reparations went, the company he worked for, having polluted some of the land with their experiments nearby, offered reparations to the local community, but he had no desire to interfere with that or take away from them, so he did not bother dealing with the reparations at all.
Thank you so much. Blake does some good work.
Has his movements.
Maria.
Blake gave me an idea.
Nice. We're going to get to that in the rest of the remembrance. Maria, the healer. Where'd my notes go? My turn to... Maria's knowledge of the land's healing capabilities was unparalleled. There was not a plant or animal Maria didn't know or have an old tale about. Knowing this, Maria set out to teach her ancestral knowledge to anyone in the community that would partake. Organizing her community to use ride-sharing and buses and ferries, Maria would take friends and family out to teach hands-on directly. in community with the land. As they were doing this work and exploring, they realized the land was dying because of the colonizers and the pollution and the corruption of the soil. Maria knew she needed to make this much more accessible to all. And the work that she was doing, healing, wasn't just for the people, but also for the land itself. Risks that Maria encountered included unexploded ordnance, Agent Orange testing in various places, forms of water pollution, defoliant pollution. Awesome, thanks, Anarcho. And so, while out with her community in the lands and in the waterways, she encountered many things that posed direct contamination to her or direct danger to the people around her. Her allies, Blake, realizing or knowing that there was many issues with corruption of the land, the climate impact on the ability for the land to continue to make the healing, life-giving plants and support the fauna. Maria saw opportunity in working with Regia and Blake in order to better make public access to the direct education and the plants for the community. And there were many successes. Community became better educated, but it wasn't as widespread as it could be. And it still did not fully address the impact that the military bases and the crypto colonizers continuing to pollute and the global impact of the climate was having even on her small community. And with that, I'm going to go into phase 4, the remembrance. Together, we weave each of our ancestors' narrative threads into the tapestry that built this part of our utopia. This is the culmination of the Festival of Remembrance. We're going to collectively tell the rest of the story of how the ancestors came together to overcome the challenge. Work together to tell the rest of the story. Everyone participated in overcoming the challenge, and many other unnamed ancestors also. Make sure everyone has a chance to explain the role of their ancestor, discuss which roadblocks were encountered, and how the ancestors overcame them. Here's some prompts to help guide us through this. How did the ancestors collaborate with one another to overcome the challenge? What was a key decision the ancestors made together? How did those responsible for perpetuating the challenge counter the ancestors' efforts? How did the world look after the ancestors' intervention? So that is the final phase, the remembrance, us working together to finally overcome the remainder of this problem for our community. This phase is going to end when we can come to consensus and someone declares we've honored our ancestors for their struggle. We're going to use modified consensus to decide if we've overcome the challenge. Upon agreement, we'll flip the challenge card over. We'll do a little wrap up, go from there. We're in the remembrance. I know Regia had an idea in working with Blake. Does Regia want to start us off and sharing a little bit of that collaboration, consensus building effort?
Regia could do that. So there was a little bit of collaboration between Blake. Regia, when the first floods hit, she established that equipment library. She wanted to establish a plant library as well, and she also wanted to bring internet to her community. She needed to learn a lot from Blake about how to lead the internet to the community, but she was unaware of this tactic of planting endangered plants along areas of industry so you can reclaim the land. And really, Regia found that to be a really good subversive tactic in her fights against the powers that be that were controlling the land there as well. And she really started to come together with the ancestor hacker who shall not be named, because in addition to not knowing about how to set up, internet in their area. The hacker who would not be named to infiltrate these community groups in this subversive way needed to borrow lots of clothes that the hacker community of the crypto colonizers was not aware of from the clothes library of the local village as well, because they built up lots of libraries there towards the end. And by the end of it, they got to know the local grower. They got to know about how Maria brought those plants from Blake as well, and started to build public transport. So then Regia started to go around the whole island explaining to people how to reclaim the wetlands and to improve the soil, the local wildlife. And it was all because of her original collaboration with Blake with the endangered plants and helping get internet set up in the community. Did I do that right?
Nobody wants to follow you.
Do we have to pass it on? Do I get to choose someone? Is that the role now? Or is,
unless somebody has something maybe that they want to interject.
Okay.
Sin, you got something? Can't hear you.
Oh, that's probably why then, because Chris has been on mute and didn't realize it.
I don't hear you. Maybe the audience hears you.
I don't hear. It might just be on Twitch audio, and then we missed a bunch and talked really out of step.
I'm gonna mute my mic here again and turn the volume up on my phone because that's where I'm streaming on to listen. Sin, give us a sound check again real quick, please, and thank you.
Say, Momo, Krios, do you hear anyone? No.
Tree, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Is that better? Good. All right. For some reason, my audio decided to unplug from the my sound mixer, audio mixer. That was weird. My mic did. Okay. Well, Maria, of course, works with Blake and really wants to focus on Blake being a bridge between the colonizer interests in the area and the local knowledge, and really informing the decisions that our friendly engineer was implementing in how to best cultivate the natural land and grows there natively. Maria was fascinated by this use of the library that Regia had created and lend the community organizing of public transit, ride sharing capabilities into a ride transportation library for people to be able to use in order to make sure that there's resources, vehicle, the tools weren't destroyed and were able to be continually used by everybody in the community. The idea of the greenhouses being able to protect the plants as nature was allowed to develop its own permaculture and biointegrate back in to the land and heal the land through the use of the greenhouses. Technology of the engineer of Blake was vital, but could not be done and led without the elders and the community that Maria represented by passing on that ancestral knowledge. The identification of those issues with Agent Orange and live ordnance, unexploded ordnance, implications of military being in Vaquez and Culebras and around the rest of the island, needed more work than just what Maria was capable of. And it was essential that got pressed in order to make it so that the land could heal and the people could heal from the traumas done by those. So Maria needs some help hear from somebody, anybody, many of these.
The unnamed helped Maria a lot. And the unnamed was able to help Maria because they were led by all of the other ancestors into an understanding of responsible use of digital technology. And in that way, the unnamed was able to balance the relationship between digital technology and the earth, so that as we were working toward our utopia and conquering the digital divide, we were doing so responsibly, so that the technology was being used to repair the earth and not cause more harm to the earth, and that the technology was being used to help the people and not to exploit the people. So in all the various ways that the other ancestors were working together, the unnamed was actually observing and not really participating, but learning. And then when it came time for them to step into their role, they knew exactly what not to do, to not replicate what the colonizers and the US military and all of the other militaries had done to harm the land and the people. Okay, thanks.
You know what? That actually sounds like we have consensus. I think we have consensus. Do we have consensus? Thumbs up?
Consensus to me.
Momo, would you like to declare this? Go ahead and make that declaration.
I hereby declare that we have honored our ancestors for their struggle.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Well, when the assembly agrees, a symbol of the challenge is tossed into the fire. The assembly has recovered the continuum between our ancestors' struggle and our present utopia. By resurrecting our ancestral memories, we have participated in humanity's legacy of freedom. Congratulations. Puerto Rico is safe. Woo! And with that said, that ends this game of SolarPunk Futures. Do a little...
Another good Remembrance Day, huh?
Yes, another good Remembrance Day. And so with that, let's do a little wrap up, go around and talk about the game, what we thought about it. You know, maybe about like some of the problems that we are facing and that Puerto Rico does face currently, and the work that is going on to kind of address some of the things that we were talking about today, because this is a very real problem. Pretty short, right, Momo?
Yeah, definitely. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead. Start us off. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I obviously it's my first time playing this game and playing a game in this format, and I really, really loved how it got me enough out of our present reality that I could think differently about our present reality and really be more creative and hopeful in how I think about our current challenges and ways that we might be able to collaborate and work together and actually overcome them with some imagination. So it was really it kind of just made me feel like hopeful.
You want to toss it to somebody else? We'll go popcorn style for wrap up. You can toss it to somebody else and.
Let's go to Sugar.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was having a hard time putting all my traits and my tools and everything together. It was like, what do I do about the digital divide as a grower? And y'all kind of did it anyway. I mean, there's huge implications for growers in there. I thought that was rad. It always gets you to think outside of the box on these problems that do seem insurmountable and so awful. And I think the beauty of just cyberpunk or SolarPunk in general is that kind of optimist twist on things that once you look at things in the retrospect, as if you push yourself in the future and think about how you already solved these problems, they do seem like they're solvable. I thought, like, sometimes when I play these games, something in SolarPunk that you don't always see is using technology and incorporate it into some sort of like environmentalism, or like bright green, like enviro, like kind of situations. I thought we did that really well in this game. I thought you all did a good job with that, so I was impressed. And that biometric stuff is awesome. I want to learn more about that, that's for sure. I like the fact that Momo's or the Nameless is helping to create this the clothing line for the SolarPunk future, because I can't wait to wear that stuff, because that's going to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Cameron.
But
Yeah, I've never played a game in this type of format before. It was fun. I kind of felt like I was like put on the spot a bit. I didn't know how I would react, and it was, I don't know. I did feel like it was super hopeful. I never played a game that was so uplifting like that. And having to be put on the spot with like even like a couple minute monologue, I was like, oh no, like, but like it was so easy to synthesize with you all. I felt like too, and like I was I was kind of bummed at the end that I didn't get to hear from Krios and Sugar over there, because like Blake, I feel like was ready to go with like their synthesis of the situation, where, and I felt like Sugar was gonna be like, just giving the rum to the protest, being the lively like grower out of the like the entire situation.
I think Blake
like,
and Sugar got into the rum.
Yeah, exactly. And like the whole undercurrent of like the SolarPunk being like solar was powering this in a way. We knew that was through the original biomimicry that that Blake brought around to come around with, modeling off of the local plants. And me personally, I just think about all the real world implications of this, and how it's devastating how much like areas still get flooded, and how there are tried and true methods of restoring the natural wetlands to the area that help everything around it. And how the idea of usufruct came up in there. Like, I really do think the libraries are the future in this too. Like, it would be so easy to do that with everything, like clothing, like digital repositories too. Everything should be a library that can. And yeah, I don't know. There's one more thing I had to say about it, but I think it was just the fact that this entire game was unique to me, and I thought it was fun. So thank you for having me here.
Great having you here. Krios, you want to go?
I was really hoping Cameron would say Sint. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, this is my first go at this game. I remember reading the instructions a little bit earlier and kind of getting an idea, but when you play it, everything just goes from your head. I'm a longtime D&D player, and coming up with some of these 5-minute backgrounds, I'm like, wait, no, he did guerrilla gardening, but wait, what does that have to do with digital? Wait, I gotta remember the problem is this. Oh, but he works for this biotech and biomim. Like, man, it was all over the place. So it's a lot harder than someone might think. Which is why I was very happy to see a few Maria and the hacker that shall not be named. And sorry, I forgot your elder or old ancestor, Cameron. But like, take that front of the while Blake and Sugar just kind of enjoyed the rum. So, but overall, it's a very fun game. And like you said, Cameron, it is very uplifting. Like, it really gets you thinking on things that could be possible solutions that, I mean, like, I'm no actual engineer, but these ideas of, hey, there are vertical greenhouses, there are people are growing gardens up on the sides of buildings, and does that help with the digital infrastructure? Not yet, but who knows, maybe somebody will now start planting endangered plants on top of the the protected the areas they want protected. But yeah, kind of a cool game. I'm excited to try it again at a later point. So Sin, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to you.
Awesome. Well, this is probably third or maybe the fourth time I've played this, and every time it's been great. Every time I played SolarPunk Futures, I've walked away actually having some new ideas, a new viewpoint on some issues, because the players, all of us, are coming back with a very diverse background of experiences and knowledge and ways of approaching things. And then we're asked to take that experience, our personal real life experience, and then put it through the frame or the filter of this a character that kind of twists some of those things, and we might not be the most knowledgeable in tools or values, but I think we get to some core questions about ourselves and our own experiences, and it's really cool getting this collaborative game that solves a problem, looks at it from a position already solved, and you get to walk away going, hey, I got some new ideas for how to do that actually now, right? Like, oh, this is what somebody in 2022 did in order to make it to 2045, 2050, when they're doing this remembrance, right? And we can take this from all our places and take this into our community. Things that people like, nobody in here is like an artificer or a barbarian or a wizard. These are all community people that like, and not to say that we can't be D&D adventurers, and all of us are, but like, this is all stuff that's rooted in what we face now, and solving the problems that we face now, but having done it successfully. So it is really uplifting. Yes, I know you are. And so I absolutely love playing with you guys and learning a little bit, and get to take this into my activism and into my organized work. And I hope everybody does a little bit. I also really like getting to solve a problem that is near and dear to my heart, and talking about the issues of Puerto Rico, which is something that needs to be talked about. There's some really great organizations out there that are doing some work with uplifting the global South. Cameron, if you could tell us a little bit about Debt for Climate before you get off, if you got a little bit of information on that. But before you turn to that, I would love to hear Momo tell us a little bit more about Centro Solidario and the work that you're doing in Puerto Rico that kind of addresses some of the stuff that we were talking about a little bit tonight. So like, I hope this helped you in what you're doing on the island. So if you want to tell us about what you're doing in reality, and where people can find out more information, go to you, and then we'll go to Cameron, and go from there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the space to talk about it. So I repatriated in January 2020, right before COVID. I'm Viequense, which is that my family comes from the little tiny island of Vieques off the east coast of Puerto Rico. We're actually an archipelago made of multiple islands, not just one. And Vieques was the site for 62 years, and the sister island Culebra, which is just above Vieques, for like 70 something years of military testing. So a lot of the things that Chris was bringing up in their description through the storytelling are real things that we live with, like unexploded ordnance, open detonation of the unexploded ordnance, and all of that comes with contamination, depleted uranium, Agent Orange, all of the things basically that the US military has used in its imperialist wars for all of this time has been practiced on us first. So we live with illness, cancer, death, a lot of suffering. And because of the hurricanes, the hospital in Vieques was destroyed, and there hasn't been an adequate medical facility since. To be honest, there hasn't been adequate medical facilities ever to actually deal with the outcomes and the impacts of the US military weapons testing and war games there. So in the context of Puerto Rican self-determination, we have all this other suffering happening at the same time, like the privatization of our electrical grid, of most of our essential services, the closing of the majority of our public schools to basically facilitate the takeover of charter schools. The privatization of everything is happening here. And we have crypto colonizers. So all of these crypto bros like Brock Pierce, we've got the influencers, the Logan Pauls, people coming here and just recolonizing us. And so we've got tremendous work happening through our food sovereignty initiatives, through so many points of resistance from the Puerto Rican people who want their sovereignty honored. And one of the ways that I'm trying to help support that is with the Centro Solidario, which means Solidarity Center. And it's this house. Right now, it's just a house, a 2-story house that is Center Solidarity as a response to the origin and impacts of US militarism, colonialism, and imperialism. And we do that by basically doing whatever solidarity is needed. So our local solidarity, our national solidarity, and our international solidarity are all to support basically the self-determination of our people, but our health, our emotional health, our mental health, our social health, economic health, and so on. And so what Centro Solidario does right now is focus its local solidarity efforts on facilitating access to medical care on the Big Island for the people who live in Vieques and Culebra. So I left Vieques to get a house before it got stolen by colonizers. I used my veterans benefits to get the house. It's close to the ferry port because people from Vieques and Culebra have to use newly privatized maritime transportation system, which is horribly flawed and has led to actually the worsening of sickness and even death of a lot of our people, including children. And I am fixing up the place so that it's ADA compliant, so that it's safe and comfortable for people who need to spend a lot of time on the Big Island to stay here and access healthcare, to be provided transportation, to not have to worry about paying for a hotel or a taxi, or even food while they're here. They can only focus on getting well. And I've already had people here from Vieques whose family has been in critical care in the hospital here, and they were sleeping in their car. So it's just I don't know, working with what we got, to provide some mutual aid and try to create at least a little bit less of a burden for people to access healthcare, which is a very basic human need. And then our national and international solidarity work is all about supporting food sovereignty. It's all about supporting these other interconnected struggles that, it's not just Vieques and Culebra that suffers because of US imperialism and how the US has used its military and used Puerto Ricans in its military to cause absolute destruction around the world and perpetuate the climate crisis. We are also a frontline climate crisis community. So there's a lot of efforts underway here in PR, and what Centro Solidario can do is be kind of a hub, a communication portal, talking about the digital divide, provide access for communities and projects that may not have the resources to host their own webinars or whatever, create podcasts and so on and so forth, whatever is needed by the communities that are here. So I'm looking for fiscal sponsorship, and potentially we'll have that through the Alliance for Global Justice. And we have a fundraiser now to help us finish fixing the house, also do disaster prep because it's hurricane season. And I've been paying for everything out of my disability check and I'm running out of money. So it's kind of we need help because I still can't serve the people with this house yet. And our ultimate goal is to pay off the house, and that the house belongs to the people and it will never return to the predatory real estate market. But this is a sovereign house that's for Puerto Ricans to use to help our communities. And then hopefully to build a similar project in another location and create a network of mutual aid solidarity houses. So thank you for giving me the time to share that.
Of course, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. There's a lot talking about the military's role in the imperialism, right, that goes around the world, and the impact of military and climate crisis. And there's a lot of efforts going on right now to address the climate debt that the global South, which includes Puerto Rico, has foisted upon them in what's called debt trap diplomacy, right? And the privatization of things and removal of sovereign power of states. people and their local nations to actually have self-determination in handling the problems of climate crisis because of the debt that we foist upon them as part of the damages that we do around the world. And Cameron, I know that we kind of know each other a little bit from doing some climate work. And I know that you have a little bit of information about Debt for Climate, which is an awesome organization. Care to share some information about that?
Sure, and I just want to say thank you to Momo for the work you're doing in Puerto Rico and VAKs. And I did not know much about the history and the ongoing struggle, so I really do thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for sharing that link. I appreciate that. I can share that around as well. It's really it's broadly happening to so many people in so many areas that have not only borne the brunt of climate change and ongoing ecosystem disruption, but are continuing to see the consequences of other people's actions. And that's one way that people are still kind of holding people in this trap, is through debt. The global financial structure has a lot of debt, that is their investments that they make a return from. And the only way they do so is by these countries continuing to produce GDP. And the way they do that, and the way they develop economies in the modern sense, is by causing more climate and ecological disruption to the land. And people in these countries, majority, do not want this to happen. And their governments feel obliged to do so. People in power do. And we know we're fighting against people in power all across the globe. And in this way, the financial centers of the current world economy hold the global south in these debts in ways that prohibit their own growth and development in the ways that they want to, in their own terrible metrics. So right now there's a big push for them to just cancel the debts, because there's no real and let them use that money to invest in their growing and resiliency against what is certainly going to be climate chaos in a lot of places. And in some areas, people have done mass protests to do this. What we want to do is we want to bring that type of protest to the global north and places of power when they have their little G7 meeting in the end of June, where they just 7 European nations and then plus the US and Canada try to talk about what they want to do for their economies, to advance their economies. Meanwhile, their economies not only are through the industrial sectors pillaging the land in South America with big mines, and where communities in the global south are trying to retake ownership of the mines to the local community and do it in a more ecological way in places like Chile and Argentina. And really, this is happening not only in South America, it's happening in Africa for the mining of precious metals to use a lot of northern electronics, in Southeast Asia to fell the rainforest for palm oil. It's in so many ways that the global south is, and it's in more ways than one. They're in debt to the north in a physical way with the financial system now. And there's a way that they can solve that quickly, that one. The rest of their ways that they feel the North feels that the people, global South is indebted to them, will take years of reparations directly from the North. So this does not stop at canceling the debt. And I'm going to post this link in just our Zoom chat real quick for you all here. I just copied your link. I'll copy the other one real quick. But really it just shows that this is just step one. This is the bare minimum to cancel the debts, so that we can move towards a place of reparations and repair for the damage that's been done. And that, in my opinion, needs to be step one from the global north in other ways than their financial institutions, because there is no reason why the U.S. military cannot be directly helping the people of VAKs right now. Not only is this a continued so-called territory of the so-called United States, they need to be able to support the people that they have so harmed over their lives. The local work I do in Philadelphia is directly in response to a refinery that is one of the oldest refineries in the Western Hemisphere. It opened in 1860s. And the way that these military industrial centers create cancer clusters that are so evident to the people around them that the authorities refuse to acknowledge, it is gross, it is sad, it fills me with dread. Like the ancestor I highlighted tonight, Reggio, my mother's maiden name was Rigitano, passed early in a few years back, age 53, struggles with cancer, beat cancer, but then a virus, not the COVID virus, pre that, the adeno virus, the one they use for some vaccines, the common cold. There are so many ways that the world is really taking away and shortening the lives of people we know and love. And we know it is happening elsewhere, and people need to address these harms directly. And I'm just tired of hearing all these stories, because the people of Vieques, the people of Puerto Rico have been through so much in recent years, and it needs to end. And people that are responsible for this need to frankly pay. And that is not, only what this debt for climate, just to go back to that, is about. It's more than that. It's about people's lives, and we're gonna keep fighting. And that's why it was so nice to be able to do this with you all. It really felt like, not only in this fictional game, but like, I don't know, I feel like I truly have solidarity with people doing really fantastic work. So thank you for having me, and thank you for sharing your work.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing that. Let me share these last couple links. All right, I dropped the Debt for Climate. Debt for Climate is in the chat. You can go to www.debtforclimate.org. About the organization Cameron was just about, get involved in your local climate crisis organizations. But also make sure that really use some support for the Solidarity Center out of Puerto Rico. Momo's work that she's doing down there, and the amazing work she's doing. So that link is also in chat. That's the bit.ly link, bit.ly/Centro SPR. And then another link that Momo shared. This is a YouTube video talking about vaques and culebras and the climate impact. More information about what we're talking about today. So go to those, support, give love, all that good stuff. And with that, I got anything else? I don't got anything else. I think that wraps up this Meeples Monday. All power to the Meeples of Puerto Rico. All power to the Meeples of the Global South. All power to the Meeples around the world. Paladin Ned, Krios, you got anything you want to take us out with?
I got nothing, man. Just support these great causes, and if you don't have the money to help out, volunteer, do something good, pass it forward, share information with your friends and family, and let's keep these struggles going.
Awesome. Thank you. Krios, you got anything?
No, I think everybody's already said pretty much anything I could. Paladin Dad really just took away all my ammo with volunteer time. Like, come on, man, pick 1 or 5, not all of them. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for covering that. I just want to say, Momo, it sounds like you're doing some awesome work down there. Please keep it up. Don't let any fights stop you. Keep going. Cameron, awesome work from you too. So excited to have met you guys tonight. Yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to Sid to do some final thoughts.
And with that, that ends tonight's Meeples Monday. Thank you all for joining us. We got a little bit of a raid in there from Left Flank Vets. Sorry, didn't get to say welcome you all, but thanks for joining us, catching that tail end, learning about the causes, orgs, actions, and people that are doing some real good on the ground work. You know what? Batsko Ding took the word right out of my mouth. Fuck war. And thank you so much for joining us. And with that, let these cool jellyfish be your palate cleanser.